Hey, everybody, and welcome to this month's Book of the Month discussion. With us, with Susie Zurenda and I, we also have the fabulous Mary Alice Monroe, who is here to talk to us about her new book, Where the Rivers Merge, which is, of course, our Book of the Month. For anyone who is new to the group, Mary Alice is the New York Times bestselling author of 30 books for adults and children. She's earned numerous accolades and awards, including induction into the South Carolina Academy of Authors Hall of Fame. Her latest novel, of course, is this month's Book of the Month, Where the Rivers Merge. Welcome back to the Lowcountry Book Club, Mary Alice.
Thank you. It's always fun to see you girls. We always have a good time. Thank you.
We are delighted to
And
see
I'm
you.
in Vegas today. I'm not in the Low Country. I'm going home at Red-Eye tonight.
What happens in Vegas? What are you? Oh, my goodness.
Book tour. I had a very intense but wonderful book tour. And at the very end, it was my birthday. And I was in Atlanta at the Foxtail Books and had a lovely chat with Karen White, who was lovely.
Oh, I saw that. Yes.
And then I took a plane the next day to Vegas because my daughter was here. She was working this giant, huge Bitcoin conference. But the lure was my birthday gift, which was to see Bruno Mars play.
Oh, my goodness.
Woo, woo, woo.
Wow.
This old author who lives by herself, this naturalist who's my first time to Vegas, I've never been.
I've never been.
It's like Disneyland for adults. It
Oh,
really,
my goodness.
the gambling, forget it. I tried the one-arm bandit and lost money, and I said that was it. I'm done. But to walk around and to see, I mean, maybe one of my characters has to go to Vegas once. I don't know.
No, that would be fun.
I don't see the people in Where the Rivers Merge going to Vegas.
No,
I don't see that either.
no, not at all.
So I'm going to go home and get back into my mindset and go back into the Low Country and finish book 2 for this.
It is definitely a different landscape. But I said it online, but I'll say it here. Happy belated birthday. And I'm so glad you got to go to Vegas. First of all, it's just a lovely book. Everyone in the group has just been raving. Congratulations on an absolute triumph.
And I mean, the reason it means so much to me for this book was that it was so new in so many ways. And I knew I had to write. This was the book that Pat Conroy urged me to write.
You know, I heard his voice in that book.
Did you? Well, I tell you, he's been haunting me to write.
Yep.
Has he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Cassandra, he leaves me shiny pennies whenever I'm goofing off. And I told Cassandra, and she says, "Oh, that's just Pat fooling with you." They fooling. And he leaves her shiny pennies too, because there's a book for her to write. Yeah. So to my mind, it's, my first historical. And it's not that I sat down to write a historical. I sat down to tell the story that takes place in this 20th century South, which, I'm sorry, everyone always thinks real Southern history ends after this, Civil War, and the greatest Southern novel is, Gone with the Wind, which it is one of my all-time favorites. But the 20th century is more remarkable. What changed? So many changes.
Interestingly enough, the first question I was going to ask you is tell us about your decision to delve into this particular genre, but you're doing such a beautiful job. I'm not sure I need to ask questions. Keep talking.
Well, you just ask it, and there we go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to write this historical, was because I wanted to tell this story. And it's actually dual. To my mind, 1988 is not a historical, but my God, how horrifying to me to think that they're calling the 80s historicals. Like, holy Lord, I was still pretty young then, but I was.
But it's set in the early 20th century also. So that's historical.
The first book, where it's 2 books, as you know.
Right.
And I want to make sure everybody knows. I'm always surprised that I've been very open that this is one story, 2 books.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of editorial decisions why the publishing house wanted 2 books. And all I know is that I was told we decided on 2 books, and that's how I saw it, as one story.
Right.
So Where the Rivers Merge is clearly historical. It's 1908 to 1926.
Okay.
And then book 2 will be 1926 to 1988. So I have a lot to cover. That's called The River's End. I mean, we know what it's called. I'm writing it now. I can really hardly wait to get home to finish it. It's like
that's wonderful.
Waiting to come out.
Wonderful.
And I write, it's one story, and I already know the middle, I know the end, I know scenes. I just have to fill in the blanks now because I know the whole story. But it's dual timeline, and because it's dual timeline, you go between 1988 and 1908 and through her life. So it is historical, but the dual timeline, to me, keeps it in the present. But I guess it really isn't if it's 1988. But to my mind, our sensitivities and sensibilities are modern.
But Eliza's story is so strong, you know, back when she is a young woman and she is coming of age and she's this incredible horsewoman. It is in 1988, but your heart is very much with her when she's a young woman, you know.
That voice of young Eliza just burst out. I mean, and I don't know whether it's because I just finished writing a lot of middle grade books, so that age was in my head, but her voice, and Covey too, you in there, girl, you know. Who are you? And that just the way they talked and they loved each other and played together it just was so easy.
I bet writing the middle grade books did have a lot to do with that, because it was sort of practice, I guess, for getting into the head of a character that age. I would think that would be.
Yes, and it very much, although I don't think I was aware of it except in retrospect. Getting the voice in first person was hard. I write in third person generally. It's where I feel most at home. And I always used to say, I'll never write first person. So when I began, I had a lot of false starts with this book. It took 4 years. And the history, the research was intense, but mostly how to tell this epic story.
Right.
So what made you decide to do first person?
Because when I wrote in third, it wasn't sounding good. And I was concerned about writing Covey voice. There's a lot of sensitivity reasons why I had to make that decision. And I thought, no, this is so big that I want to tell it through one woman's voice. And the line of I decided on, we're going to live her life
with her.
With her. But the older woman is where I am. The older woman is where I get to say all the things I want to say to my daughters and to other women. Because as Eliza tells this story and relives her life, the ice that you see surrounding this hardened woman at the beginning of the book slowly starts to melt, and she questions herself. And in book 2, you're going to see this woman have a full circle in the novel. And I want everyone who reads the book to know that I always write in circles. And in this book, the opening of the book is the tree hollow.
Yes. Yeah.
It comes up again and again, but I want everyone to know that please, if you read book 2, and I hope you do, I'm going to take you back to that tree hollow.
Yeah, which is a circle in itself.
And I want y'all to remember, I know I'm taking you back. So when you get there, say, oh, she told us.
Well, okay, so in talking about the tree hollow, which is a big metaphor in the setting, and that was my first question to ask about the sense of place. And when you were talking about Pat haunting you and his incredible ability to write about setting in the Lowcountry, I mean, maybe just talk about that a little bit and what it's like to have setting more or less come alive as a character. I mean, yes, Mayfield is a house, but Mayfield is a place
and a character.
And so how does a place, because it does come alive as a character and maybe the dominant character right now
and the love of her life.
Yes, and a place where she isn't so hardened. You know, I mean, she
And
saw
like
from the beginning with Mayfield.
and like any love affair, there's ups and downs, right? And so I think the three themes were love, land, legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Those were my major themes. So for love, there are people she loves, men, her best friend, the friend love, and love of Capitano, her horse,
Yes.
and love of Mayfield. And of all of those, I think the consistent in her life was always that place, that Mayfield. And I think that she's not alone. Some people love their sense of home and
Oh
place
gosh, yes.
fiercely. If you've got cancer or cancer, right? Not, I'm not, if you have cancer in your horoscope, that kind of cancer,
Yes.
then your home is your sense of being. And so I saw her as a woman, a cancer kind of astrological person whose home was everything. But she loved everything fiercely. She
Mm-hmm.
was colorblind. She was gender blind.
Sure.
She loved fiercely. And it was her flaw as well as her strength.
Right.
And the land for her, why I took you to 8 years old, from this hardened woman who, as you know, as authors, you always have your inciting incident. And I also, how do you begin this novel? I'm answering your question in a long way.
That's great.
The inciting incident, after many false starts, I decided the hardened 88 Eliza telling you in the first couple pages, I must save Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Her outer goal is established. As an author, I can point to the line. The reader just absorbs it, but as the structuralist for the story, I point it out so that there's no doubt what her goal is. So, what I wanted to show is why people want to save the land, because that is a fact, that's photographable. But the inner side, the human side, is why does a woman love a place, her home, so much? She'll fight with family,
Right. Her own
fight
son.
the world, her own son, to keep it. So the land for her was the love of her life. But so that's the land. Why people put land in conservation, that's the why. And the legacy is, as she tells the story, she thinks leaving the land is her legacy, but she's seeing these two young women that she's telling the story to.
Right. Right.
Begins to, and especially in book 2, as she melts, lives, and she knows what her true legacy really is. And I think the takeaway for my readers will be, please consider, what is your legacy?
Right. And one reason she loves it so is its tremendous beauty, is its natural
And
beauty.
that's what she loves as a child. They're making
Yes. Yes.
over crowns. They're
Right. Right.
making
Right.
art and in tree hollows. But when she gets older, it's a power struggle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
See the
Now
difference.
you chose to set it in the Ace Basin, and I am so privileged to have a little tiny home that's on the edge of the Ace Basin, and
Like,
it's one of the great gifts in South Carolina, because the only reason I'm there is the little street I have. The lots were cut in the 50s, and so they were there. But there's not, as you know, I mean, there's not much there but water and land and trees and old rice gates, and it's quite beautiful. So we thought maybe that you would tell your readers about a little bit about the Ace Basin and why you chose that area for Mayfield.
well, after 20 years, and it really was, I've talked to you about my other books many times, and you know that I choose a species and bring an awareness to that species. That's been my mission in
Right.
storytelling. And after 20 years, I still have one more beach house I will write, because speaking of full circle, I haven't finished it yet. So, excuse me, the air in the desert's very dry. I got to get home to my humid air. So, I just felt I wanted to look at the broader picture. Where I live on the coast, where hurricanes are very strong now and scary. And on the western North Carolina, house just barely escaped that huge tragedy. All across the nation, the fires and the floods. We are not expecting changing climate. We are in it right now. So I wanted to address the bigger picture. And I struggled for a long time. How? I knew land conservation was a key to the protection of habitat and species, but those are facts again, right? So I'm just looking for story. So I zeroed in on what in South Carolina some people know, but outside South Carolina, virtually no one knows what the Ace Basin is. And it's not only 360,000 acres of land that are put into conservation. ACE is an acronym for the Ashepoo, Combahee, and Edisto rivers, three mighty South Carolina's rivers that merge into this area and forms one of the great estuarine parks in the Southeast. And so that's cool.
It is cool.
I've got the land. So then you dig deeper. Is there a story here? And you realize, oh, wait a minute. This was the history. This is where the great rice plantations were that provided the wealth and the family wealth of the. So, okay, I've got that to dig into.
And they're still there. I mean, you can ride up the river and see them.
And I stayed at several, which was why I was very, I got to know what it smelled like.
And the rice fields,
And so I thought, okay, this is the area. And the third point about the Ace Basin that sold it for me is I thought, okay, I'm going to be in a boardroom and they're going to talk about in 1988. And I realized how boring for the readers. They don't want to be in a boardroom. They want to be there. And they want the love stories and they want the pain and the angst and the joy and the victories. So I decided to go back to show why this woman fell in love, like I said, with the land and how she got to 1988. And there was my story.
Starting with the land.
Starting
with the beautiful Ace Basin.
And I know people are going to fall in love with the Ace Basin. And my hope is that the species I'm studying is the human species.
Yes.
And I'm questioning all the territorialism of animal behavior that you see in all the animals in the Ace Basin, this wide diversity. And primogeniture is a major theme. And there's territorialism involved in that by gender.
Right.
And the question we have to ask each other at the end of this book, as we face changing climate globally, is, are we humans above animals, where we can look beyond territorialism for the survival of a species? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's a question we need to consider. And that's what our darling Eliza is going to have to face at the end.
So I want to pivot back to Eliza just for a second, because I always want to talk about the characters and where the characters come from, what inspired them. We meet Eliza Pinckney Rivers Chalmers Delancey. I love that name.
It loved a lot of people.
That's a good low country Southern name.
I know.
So we meet her as an 88-year-old, and then later as an 8-year-old. And she's as a full-grown woman, she's the CEO of her company, a formidable woman. And then we meet her as the child and follow her throughout the rest of the novel. What or who inspired this character?
Well, she's maybe my favorite all-time character. She's kind of like Lovey, only with a little bit more strength. And she lived longer than Lovey too. So there you are. So I did a lot of research, of course. And so a lot of women, but the two women who most inspired the formation of this character was Eliza Pinckney. And for those of you in the audience who don't know who she was an iconic character, historical character in the colonial period in Charleston. Her father left her at age 16 to go back to Antigua. And in Charleston, she had managed at 16 3 plantations. He knew his wife, so he left it to his daughter. And not only did she do that, but she brought indigo to Charleston, a great wealth source for the area, and that was Eliza Lucas Pinckney. And I loved that she was small and tiny, and her mother worried no one would ever marry her because she was too much of a businesswoman. And I modeled Eliza after her physically, but also Eliza took pride that she was a descendant of Eliza Pinckney. And then she's a Rivers, and that is a strong Southern Charles name. But I loved it because of the double entendre with the
Oh, yes.
merge.
Right.
Because that's the title. The Rivers merge there, but eventually the family is going to merge at this place. And the other character was a little further north at the plantation, north of Georgetown, called Hopcaw Barony.
Mhm.
And Mr. Baruch was one of the wealthiest men in America. This was the 30s and 40s. And that is more book 2, where it reflects when the robber barons came in, part of the history I love most. And they bought up the plantations. And we had a word for them. One word, small d, damn Yankees. The damn Yankees came, and it was affectionate, bless their heart. And they came in big numbers, and they came because the rice plantations went fallow and bust. But when that happened, the ducks came in, and after the ducks, the hunters came in. And so the hunting aspect, that's all book 2. So the damn Yankees came, and Belle Baruch was the daughter of, I'm blanking on his first name, Mr. Baruch, who was an advisor to FDR in the 30s and 40s. She could 6 foot tall.
Wow.
Out hunt, out fly, out ride any man. But her father would not leave her the land because she was a woman, and left it to the ne'er-do-well son. And as she got old and he was ready to die, things changed. But that whole sense of, even though primogeniture is abolished in the courts of law, it still was very much a real thing about giving land to the family.
Oh,
So
yes.
it was those two characters that formed, those two people that formed the character alike.
Yeah. Well, that was the next question I was going to ask, is about primogeniture. And it's such a, I mean, unfortunately, at least in my limited knowledge in the South, it's was a very, very real thing. I was awfully lucky in my family that they weren't like that. But my husband's family, his grandmother ended up really not in dire straits, but not real well off, because her father believed that he should leave all his land just to his sons, and his daughter, well, she was expected to marry well, and she didn't marry so very well. And so it was a horribly unfair thing, you know.
Still
But
happens.
it's an important subject to be writing about.
And it still happens today. And even for families who don't have great pieces of land or whatever, I think that there's always that, sometimes it's just favoritism for the males in the family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the women, you're going to find a husband, you go off. I mean, even my own daddy, I was probably one of his most academic kids. I lived to go to school, loved school. And when it was time for college, he says, yeah, you can go to college, but you're going to get married and have a family. And I was so, what?
Yeah. Yeah, which kind of brings up the second part, I was thinking about, how far have we come, in overcoming that barrier? Though it's not legal, families can do whatever families want to do.
Looking at what's going on in the country right now in women's rights, I'm asking that same question. Be mindful of how far we've come, and are we prepared to lose? Eliza, okay, let's look at Eliza. She could not inherit. She could not vote. They didn't have the votes till the 20s. She had no legal voice. She was at the mercy of the men in her life.
Mm-hmm. And yet she became a hard-nosed businesswoman.
Because every choice she had to make was a battle.
Mm-hmm.
And life doesn't have to be that hard. Nothing came. She loved everyone in her life, and and I think what her young ones are going to learn, and this is what the other flip side of all this is Savannah and Nora are going to understand, oh my gosh, she's this way because she had to make the choices she did, even with her son.
Right.
And
Right.
Arthur represents Dana Beach at the Lowcountry, the Coastal Conservation League. He was a player at the formation of the East Basin and the legal side. And he told me of how many stories of family conflict there were. And so Arthur is the character to represent those family members who actually in real time were against putting land in conservation. They didn't have that love.
Right.
Mhm.
And that ties into the next question. Eliza's relationships with the key men in her life, her father and her son, are marked by tension and emotional distance. What underlying factors contribute to the strain in both the father daughter and mother son dynamics? And how do these relationships shape Eliza's identity and choices?
Oh, I love that question because I really thought long and hard on how to represent all these different um, aspects of this tumultuous era that we went through in the 20th century. And early in the 20th century, I wanted to show a young girl who was against the expectations for a woman. She was the bane of Sloane, her mother's existence.
Oh, yes.
Sloane wanted her to be the perfect daughter because she came from a family that was not a proud Charleston family. Her family had money, but as everyone knows, no money will ever buy you a position in society in Charleston. You've got to marry into the family. So it was interesting how Rollins had to remind her at the table that my family wasn't so proud of my marrying you either, honey. You were but he needed her money. So the father-daughter relationship was a solid one because he let her in the barn. He recognized her skills, and the mother-daughter relationship was tumultuous. As they age,
It shifts.
relationships change as we change. This is real life. Everyone can look at how the relationships with their mothers might have changed over time. And as Eliza changed, her mother changed, and their relationship got better. But the
Yes.
father could not let go of his choices, and that became bitter. So I think the trap of writing historical is to fall into nostalgia. Make everything happy, and it was a happier time. Life was slower, and the sun shone brighter. No, no.
Yeah, I think one of the things that hurt my heart, but it's just the way it is that there she won the horse race for him and won back that property and that lake pond for
Yeah.
him. And he was happy about that, but
And
not happy
he
enough.
thanked her.
He thanked
That
her,
was enough.
but he wasn't happy enough to do
The right thing.
the right thing by her.
And there was no in his
Because
mind,
of culture.
but in his mind, he was doing the right thing.
Well, that's a good point, Mary
And
Alice.
I think
Yeah,
he
that's a
was
good point.
absolutely inflexible. And I think when parents are inflexible with children, diversity, any kind of diversity, boom.
Right,
And that we're seeing a lot of heartaches in families.
right,
And I just think that a little conversation, a little bending
right,
is what we need in so many areas of our lives.
right.
So that would be a book club discussion.
It would. I mean, because he was a man of his time, but that didn't mean he couldn't have opened his heart up.
And opened his eyes to Lizaine.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he was also going into dementia, and let's be honest,
Yeah.
that's a lot of us have faced or are facing dementia,
Right.
and it's as we live older, longer, and get older, many of us are seeing more of it, and clearly that was happening to Rollins, but no one talked about it. They didn't have an identity no one had the word dementia.
Right.
He just goes off into the woods a lot.
Mm. It was a different time.
It-
Susie, should we skip ahead to make sure that we get some of the group's questions?
Yeah, we just love hearing Mary Alice and explains
Yeah.
everything so beautifully. But yes, we do want, because there were a number of people in the group who had
You
specific
want to
questions.
start with Pat, and then I'll come in after that, or do you?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Okay, so this is reader Pat Dupuis. Is that how I say her name, or Dupuis? Okay.
Dupree.
She says this, her meaning Mary Alice. Descriptions remind me of Frances Parkinson Keyes. She
Oh,
wrote multi-generational stories like The River Road and Crescent Carnival set in Louisiana. It's sad how the deaths of Hayward and Hugh destroyed the Rivers, but not the Rhodes family. The Rivers fell apart and never recovered. Oh, they hadn't seen book 2, but anyway. A particularly poignant and painful scene was Eliza turning her father away from her wedding.
okay.
That really got to
No
me.
spoilers, Susan. Don't give spoilers. Just say.
Well, she does them on this.
We in this particular group, they all know that we do this at the end of the month, and everybody has, or if
Yeah,
they,
so sorry, but that's Susan's rule.
they don't have to watch
You're
the interview.
good. Okay, good. Thank you, Susan.
But anyway, so this
Yeah.
reader wants to know, was Eliza's father turning up at the wedding dressed up and sober meant as an olive branch or an
Yes.
assertion of his parental status?
I think it was obviously both. It was something I imagine there's no villain. He loved his daughter, and he wanted to walk his only daughter down the aisle.
Right.
And she loves him, and she wanted him to walk her down the aisle. And that's what made it so poignant. And she said, Daddy, just a little piece that I can bring my children to. I don't want the whole thing. I understand. But can we make it? No. That ice poured over her on her wedding day. Eliza could close the door.
Mm-hmm.
She gave everything to him. She gave up college for him.
Yes, she did.
And for him, she didn't ask for, even question what she knew was a bad decision to give it to Lizane. But he wouldn't give her the pond that she won back.
I know.
That kind of rigidity is the kind of rigidity in all families that breaks them. So it's a warning for all of us to
What
make.
you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yes. One conversation, one bending would have changed the rest of their lives.
Yes, it would.
So yeah, poignant and all too frequent.
Yes. And forgive me for not saying before that we.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Susan assumes that in the group, she always has that disclaimer. Yeah. If you haven't read the book, don't watch the interview till you read.
I thought about every decision I made for this book. Oh, it took a long time, but I really thought about everything a lot. And there's so many layers. And I'm hoping that this is a good book club discussion because
oh gosh, yes.
Even that, the relationships, yes, the big picture is land and legacy, but the discussions are going to come from the life.
Right. Yes, of the people. That's right.
And Covey and her relationship.
Right. So Stephanie Brown wants to know, she says, I always love to listen to Mary Alice talk about her books and writing. What are some of the stories behind the story in the book? And then she asked a few other things. What's your favorite writing quote and et cetera. But I'll stop there for a minute and let you address some of your stories behind the story.
Oh, there's two I want to tell. One is there is a Capitano, and I'm going to take a picture. And it's, well, Cindy Boyle, Susan. So it's Cindy Boyle's husband's John's horse. And I love Capitano. And he's just such a regal horse. And I've always wanted to tell the story of the marsh tackies. So I just made him a marsh tacky. And so there's that. I know, I just love that horse. The other fun story is that one of the damn Yankees that came was the Doubledays. And I looked and visited many plantations and stayed at two. And Bonnie Hall was my favorite. And you can actually drive in Yamasee and see Bonnie Hall from the road. They're not available to access. I'm going to go on Pinterest and create my pictures so y'all can see.
Oh, fine.
But when Doubledays came, they actually bought the house and then added the two flanks on either side that I put in my book that she and James did. But when I visited for real, Doubledays had this, he was the publisher, had this errant author, a British author, who was late in delivering an important manuscript. And so Doubleday built a little cottage in the back with very few windows that I actually went to. That author was Somerset Maugham, and he finished The Razor's Edge.
Yes, he did.
So I sat I was there, and I was working.
I've wanted to see that. I'm still going to.
I'll put pictures up, and I almost bought the whole house just for that.
Okay, so Stephanie also says, what is your favorite writing quote?
What does she mean by that? Like what someone said to me about writing?
I think about writing, yes.
That's hard to get
I
up.
guess I can only say what I would say, and that is, if you really have a book in you, write it down. You have to know the beginning, the middle, and an end. You might, an idea, sorry, but can you actually write a beginning, a middle, and an end? Finish it.
Well, then she says, give her hugs from the Kentucky Mermaid, who will
yes,
to kick off her summer by rereading The Beach House Memorial Day weekend.
I know. I love you. Thank you. There's going to be another beach house, I promise.
Oh, wonderful.
We will hold you to that.
Okay.
Okay. Michelle Hicks McKay says, I've been listening and the narration has been great.
Okay.
I've enjoyed hearing all the different species of plants in the beginnings of the chapters. I'm thinking she's thinking about the
Right.
Yeah. So I guess tell us a little bit about how that came about. Is this something you wanted to do from the beginning or loved doing too, or that's what she wonders?
Well, for anyone who's read my other books, they know from time to time, including The Beach House is when I started it. No, the book club before then. I use epigrams when they're important. They serve a purpose in the novel. So in The Beach House, it was all about the turtles. So I didn't want to hit facts. I put the facts there. You shouldn't slow down your writing. For this book, Where the Rivers Merge, I wanted people to feel part of the Ace Basin, especially. So there's such diverse species that I put species on top, and I often had it correlate with the action in the chapter.
Yes.
Or even Charleston, the Rainbow Row, because now I just don't want to assume knowledge on everyone's part,
Right.
but I like to put it in there for more education without wrecking the pace of a novel.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And the only one I don't like is the alligators. I wish they were out of the Ace Basin.
No, honey. If it's salt, here's what you know this. If it's salt water, there's sharks. If it's fresh water, they're gators. And welcome to the Lowcountry.
I know. I just don't like contending with them.
A great reason to have a swimming pool.
Just don't walk your dog along the side of the water, because that's a call for lunch. Anybody, if they're not mean, they're not acting aggressive, that's their nature.
Right. It is. That's what they are.
They'll come after you. They don't go near a mother's nest. She will attack you.
And I'm forever seeing them down there.
I bet you are.
Niels Beringer says, without spoiling, although you can spoil away, a pretty big secret is revealed. And then she says, my question is, have you ever spilled the beans, or are you a good secret keeper?
I'm a good secret keeper. I do. Spoiling, I don't want anyone to spoil my story, because it loses the I think part of the reader's journey is to figure things out for themselves. And I like to have stories be realistic enough. I don't mind in a good love story that if anyone says, oh, that was predictable. Well, yeah, it's a love story. I'm writing it so it's a happy ending. Yeah, that's okay. No surprise. But this book is not that kind of a love story. This is She loves fiercely, as I said, but she has very complicated relationships, and they'll continue. She's alone at the beginning. Let's just point that out. So it's tumultuous. So I want people to understand her. What might seem, if you see, wow, she had 3 husbands. What kind of ooh, in that period of time? But now you're going to understand why.
That's titillating right there. Okay. um, Floyd Willis has a remark and then a question about the marsh tackies. And she says that she loves the book and she found the horses, the marsh tackies, very interesting. And learning that it's the state horse of South Carolina, there are only about 400 left. She wants to know if you are involved with the preservation of this horse.
Only that I'm a member of the Marsh Tacky Association, and I support the group, but I don't ride. I'm too old. I'm afraid now at this age I'll fall and break every bone in my body.
Exactly.
I think a lot of women my age are no longer on top of horses, but I adore them. And for really, since I started riding, I always looked for a way to tell a story about the marsh tackies. And it just other species came first, especially the marine species. You know, that's my heart. But this came up and I went, yes, I can write about the marsh tackies in this book. And finally, it's a species I want. People might want a smaller horse, a horse for if you ever live in the Lowcountry, you can't get a better horse than the marsh tacky. They're good for the land.
I mean, this is my question, but are things being done to preserve them?
Yes, the Marsh Tacky Association, people are breeding them.
Okay.
People are interested, they can go online to the Marsh Tacky Association.
Okay.
And people do sell horses. And the idea is to grow the species.
Megan Abbott also asked about the marsh tacky horses, but I think we've covered her question. Pat Tarter says, I'm wondering how long the seeds of this story have been in her mind. I know sometimes an author has a story they want to write, but it takes a while before they're ready with all the pieces. And she says, yes. By the way, I loved it. So how long has this been?
Well, like I said, it was maybe 10 years because Pat encouraged me. He knew this was in me, I think. And once I decided, I knew 3 years before I left Simon & Schuster to write this book. I wanted to go to a publisher and an editor who knew what I was doing. It's different.
Right.
And so at William Morrow, I met Liz Stein, and she understood the scope of the book. And my agent was waiting. They waited 3 years for me to make the move.
Wow.
So when I did, I also delayed a while because it took me such a long time to figure out, like I said, how do I tell this story? A lot of false starts. And then it was this epic novel. Do we write 1 novel or 2 novels? So the publishing side was low, but I had it in my heart and I brought all the elements in. And for me, what it took for 10 years was I was so proud of South Carolina's land conservation. But what nobody knew was why the South had so much land conservation. Was a lot of it was because of the damn Yankees who came in. What a dichotomy. How fun is that? Right about it. And so I knew to tell that story. And so that all the other stuff just came in as I did my research.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Beth Austin Wirtz says a lot of her questions were answered at a discussion in Raleigh. I guess it was last Friday night.
Oh yeah, my publicity manager was there. And it was surprised me. And I'm talking about all these things, and I'm thinking, ooh, I think everything's getting back to New York.
But she had one question, I guess, that didn't come up because she loves the hollow in the big live oak tree, and she wondered because it made her think about the angel oak in Charleston, and she wondered if the angel oak was an inspiration for Eliza's tree, or if there was a real tree that was the inspiration.
There are a couple trees that I love. I've loved hollows since I was a little girl. And I think I believed in small hollows that fairies lived in them, and all of us saw.
Oh,
And I still am thinking. I still leave flowers in hollows for the fairies. But Angel Oak is another subject completely. For 11 years, I've wanted to write that story, and I have it in my mind. I have other books too that I have in my mind. All I know now is I'm writing book 2.
right.
When I finish that, I will have said everything I wanted to say. That's why I say it's so personal. This book is everything I've wanted to say about love of land and landscape and our connection to the outer world. But also, more importantly to me, is older now. I couldn't have written this book 10 years ago or even 20 years. I
Mhm.
I'm a woman of a certain age who now I have things I want to say about life.
Yeah.
And I can now say this to my daughters who I hope will read the book and to all of you through Eliza.
Yeah. The
I'm not
wisdom.
8, but she can speak for me because only when you get to a wisdom point in your life, it's wisdom because you look back and you start connecting the dots and you see how all the decisions you made in your life really weren't so random. They were a path that kind of led you. That's very quantum mechanics, really. And I said, quantum mechanics philosophy of life that you follow this path, that you look back and say, that's how I got here. And I think that's important for us all to do. And that there are many perks about getting old, but this is the best one, is that sense of aha. It's
Yeah.
almost like you're writing a novel. We all know we struggle to find that aha moment in the novel, and it's climax, but I call it the 1-2 punch. The climax is when the decision's made for the storyline. The aha moment that James Joyce always referred to was that inner goal. Now I know what I want, and now I can be fulfilled.
Right.
And we all live our lives that way. We all, at this point in our lives, when we reach a certain age, we're blessed not to have been cut off soon because we can look back and make this decision like Eliza does. Now I know what I really want.
Yeah. Well, we will all be looking forward to book 2. And I was just looking, Susan, I think we had a question from Stephanie Belcher about Eliza, the real Eliza Lucas Pinckney, but I think that's been answered. And I think Melina Vasquez's question about how did you decide to write about the subject and the area has been too.
Yeah.
So perhaps the last one, Susan, you want to?
Right. I think we're down to Mary Alice, when do we get book 2?
When do we get it?
Okay. I apologize for everyone who's frustrated about waiting, but I really apologize for anyone who didn't know it was 2 books. I've gotten a couple. I didn't. What happened? I worked hard as a novelist to make sure there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and all the story arc. It was a coming of age novel.
Mhm.
So in that sense, the story was told happily. I wanted a happy point for Eliza. But book 2 is going to begin exactly the same day in 1988. It's not like 5 years later. And although the prologue is a dead body's found. So that's just.
That sounds like your avenue, Susan.
It does.
Really?
The dead body for the mystery writer.
I can't write a book without a body in it.
Book. This is my first, but I think it's an important beginning, like the tree hollow.
Oh, yes, it's intriguing already.
There. So when book 2 comes out, I don't really make that decision. I know that I'll be done with the book by late fall, and if not sooner. But the publisher decides. I know she was thinking of spring 27. And so when I get home, I'm going to call and have a good discussion and saying, I don't think the readers can wait that long. I don't think we need time. I think let's just get it out and let them finish the book. But
I'm
I'll let everyone know for sure as soon as that decision's made.
I'm reasonably certain everyone in this group, in this book club, would vote for sooner.
Well, frankly, so do I. I want the book out. I want you to hear the ending. I know the paperback comes out, and that's important for book clubs. And but if we get the paperback out sooner, then maybe we could get the next hardcover. It has to go hardcover paperback.
Right.
That's not my decision, but I will do recaps and do read. I think like when I have a TV series and he comes back a year later, I always watch the last episode first. So it'll your questions will be answered. I promise.
Well, we cannot wait.
Thank you.
So are you headed home now from Vegas? Or are you headed?
No, I'm at home. I have one more interview. I'm sitting in a hotel room this afternoon, and then I pack up and I'm taking the red eye home. And I miss my home. I haven't been home since early May, and the dogs and the cat and the bird, and they're all, I'm sure, not sure where I've gone. And I really, really want to get back to my office truly and write this book. And I'm not just
I can feel your excitement.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about it since early May. And if I could, I would just said, okay, bye everybody. Now I'm going to cancel the tour and I'm going to finish the book for you. But I know I've been really enjoyed meeting the readers. I haven't been out in a while. I wrote middle grade books and I wrote those because I was also doing the research for the big book.
Right.
And, my husband, as you know, was sick for a while. So the combination just kept me home. And I was a little nervous getting back on the road. And it's physically challenging, but it's also emotionally, I get so excited talking to the readers.
Mhm.
And give, because it's such an energy exchange.
Right.
That afterwards I usually fall asleep in the car. So getting in touch with my readers again has been really wonderful. And I think I have 4 more events in Charleston. And then in July, I'm going to the Northeast. So people who live there can take a look. But then I'm going to buckle down and finish this book.
Wonderful.
Wow. Well, we cannot wait to read it, and we wish you safe travels for the rest of your Northeast tour and safe travels home. And we cannot wait for the next book.
Thank you.
And thank you for this lovely book.
Yes. Thank you.
Hold up the pretty. I'm gonna hold it up one more time. The cover's so pretty.
Oh, Susan.
I mean, Ace Basin right here.
And Susan, open up to the title page. I want to readers. Y'all have the title page and notice the beautiful end papers or the wallpaper at the end of the
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Oh, beautiful.
So here's the
Okay, so everyone who's got the book, I need to cover that's an oak, but that's not the live oak that grows in the out off the marsh. This is the beautiful live oaks that we think of, like an angel oak kind of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So Greta, my daughter, drew that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Look carefully. There's a hollow. You have to look very careful. There is a hollow in there.
I see it.
And that's the one that's in my office, the big one. So that's the tree of my imagination.
Oh yeah, I see it right.
And
my finger is.
Oh.
And then here are the bird.
Isn't that gorgeous?
I can see it. I mean, I think every
Yeah, I love
people
that.
have probably read and they've seen this beauty, but
And also it's called the paper is very fine. It's thinner than actually. That's why it looks like a thin book. It's a lot of words, but that decal edge
Right.
is high cotton.
Beautiful. It's a gorgeous book.
So
it is. It really is.
For the gift.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We are delighted as always to have you, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
I love you both.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.